One Piece chapter 1140 is about the aftermath of Scopper Gabon and Luffy's meeting. We witness a comical clash between Zoro, Luffy, and Scopper, while Gunko and Shamrock's plan for Elbaf is revealed, and it reminds us of the horrible event that took place in God's Valley. In the first page, we see Scopper stand with Swagger, egging Luffy to come fight him for the key to Loki's shackles. Scopper's instigation tactics work, while Zoro remembers Colin's remarks about his father being a fierce fighter, one fearless of even Elbaf warriors. Luffy extends his arm out to grab the key, but Scopper dodges effortlessly. People in the community are surprised at his ability to even stand toe-to-toe with Luffy, but this is the minimum I expect from one of the wings of the former Pirate King. If he's compared to the ilk of Roger and Rayleigh, then yes, he should be able to dodge base Luffy's attacks. And one thing to keep in mind is that Luffy, more times than not, starts out slow in a fight. He likes to test out his opponent and gains confidence and momentum as the fight progresses, oftentimes to the point where he blooms in haki and fighting prowess as he goes. So to see Luffy having trouble with his base attacks against Scopper is not surprising to me at all. A few more reaches later and Luffy resorts to begging Scopper to just hand the key over. Luffy tries to grab it almost nonchalantly, and Scopper hakis up and smacks him down with the key. Now to me, Scopper's attack feels more like an armament attack rather than a Conqueror's Haki attack. Some people have theorized that Scopper, being the left-hand man of Roger, should have Conqueror's Haki also, but I don't think that is necessary at all. I know we have seen an influx of COC users in the story during the last few arcs, but in my opinion, it should only be reserved to the select few that represent the ideal of a conqueror. Not to mention that if Scopper had used Conqueror's Haki, you would think that Luffy would at least mention it instead of just saying Haki. Now to be fair, I'm not going to be irate if Scopper does end up having COC, because someone with his strength and cachet wouldn't go against what I have in mind of COC users. It's just not what I get from this interaction. I think it's more sensible to say that he is highly skilled in observation Haki, which allows him to evade Luffy's attack with ease, more so than COC. I also don't think having COC automatically puts you above someone that doesn't have it, as there is more nuance in the One Piece power system. The strength and usefulness of your Devil Fruit, the mastery in other forms of Haki, and your experience in the battlefield all play a role in shaping one's ultimate strength. Granted, COC, and especially advanced COC, does give you a more efficient form of attacks. But anyway, Scopper compliments Luffy's straw hat in tongue-in-cheek and says how Luffy would look better wearing it than a regular Elbaf-themed helmet. Luffy says how that straw hat was given to him by Shanks, that he holds it as a treasure, awaiting the day that he can return it to him. And Scopper simply expresses how Shanks is a cheapskate for just not giving it to Luffy. Luffy is angry at Scopper making fun of Shanks, but Scopper shuts him up by kicking the key into his mouth. While Luffy's down, he pulls out the double axes and flings them at him using a named attack. The panel of Scopper holding his two axes is so epic, and I am so grateful we're getting this exchange. For the longest time, I've had doubts on whether Scopper would ever show up back in the story. We've always seen Oda give the shine to Rayleigh and obviously Roger, but it's nice to see Scopper be in the limelight. But his axe throws prompts Zoro to step in and parry his attack. Scopper admits that Luffy has got a fine, strong crew, seeing how his right-hand man was able to block a named attack from a former left-hand man of the Pirate King. Frodo and Nami look aghast while Luffy turns into Gear 5 and Zoro readies to use his three-sword style. I'm a little shocked as to how Luffy immediately went for Gear 5 without any deliberation and without showing off his other forms first. I mean, he really wants to get this key as soon as possible so he can go back to his feast. We find out that Scopper has heard about Luffy's white form, and perhaps this is the reason why he antagonized him in the first place. He was curious as to how the fabled Nika form actually looked like and how it compared to the Elbaf text, which I presume he has had a chance to look at and theorize. Luffy and Zoro get paired to defend themselves from another hit from the axis, but Scopper puts his arms up and says he gives up. Luffy and Zoro are rightfully annoyed at his flip-floppiness, but Scopper gives up too and leaves with parting words, telling Luffy to come find him by the time he's ready to leave Elbaf, assuming it remains safe. He has always wanted to test Luffy. As we see in the flashback where he's talking with Shanks, he wasn't willingly going to accept Luffy's status without having a tussle, so I think that's why he decides to withhold the key and intended to gauge the fortitude of the Straw Hat crew. Road almost reveals Scopper's true identity, but Scopper doesn't want them finding out kidnapped so soon, so he stops him. I believe what this interaction hints at is that Scopper will divulge key information to Luffy at the end of the Elbaf arc, and at this stage of the story, I think it can only be one thing: the whereabouts to the final road poneglyph, one which will be used to get to the final island in the Grand Line. I believe Scopper was eagerly waiting for Luffy to arrive at Elbaf so he could test out his credibility and see for himself what kind of man Luffy was, and if he lived up to his former captain, the Pirate King. Now that he has seen that, he's willing to bestow his crew with the information regarding Laugh Tale so long as they maintain the peacetime of Elbaf. I'm pretty satisfied with how Oda handles Scopper in his namesake chapter, and I'm intrigued as to what his role will be after this point. Will he take a step back and hole up somewhere in Elbaf until it's time to meet up with Luffy again, or will he take a role in fighting at some point? Considering Shamrock's plan at the end of the chapter, he may need to involve himself sooner rather than later to protect his family from getting kidnapped. We move over to the Sun World and see Gunko and Shamrock traveling on their bird, which some of the kids notice. Gunko uses incantation magic to summon two members of the God Knights, Saint Sama and Saint Killingham. Saint Summers appears on his chair, not even fully clothed, and Killingham is a freak bipedal with a dragon neck and a head encased in a bubble helmet. The character design for the two God Knights stands out, and I really like that about them already. Something to note is that Killingham and Summers are both saints, while Gunko and Shamrock are not, which is interesting considering they're both part of the Holy Knights, and they all serve under the jurisdiction of the Celestial Dragons. But they are stunned to see themselves in Elbaf, and even Shamrock is like, why'd you bring two people when I only wanted one person? Killingham lets them know that Shamrock is wanted back home, and that it is an order from above, and I wonder why, and if it has anything to do with his dad Figureland. Summers mentions how things back in the Holy Land have gotten dire ever since the revelry started, and it would be best if Shamrock hurried back there. He also asks why he was summoned to Elbaf, a non-member nation, without notice. Did he want to visit Harold's grave or something? He asks, which is so weird. Why would a member of the God Knights want to visit Harold, the former king of Elbaf, in the first place? Could it be that King Harold was conspiring with the Celestials? And perhaps Loki got a wind of this and fought against him. Maybe, but maybe they hold some kind of respect for the greatest king in Elbaf's history. There's definitely more to this than what meets the eye. But we find out that their current mission is to kidnap the kids in Elbaf and bring them back to the Holy Land. And there is a bit of a challenge considering the sheer size of these kids. Additionally, they say that those without the mark cannot pass through the abyss, which could likely be referring to the teleportation system they use to move around, which means the kids can't be taken away like such. They'll have to be taken away by ship, which is what I think will end up being their downfall, I assume, as it gives the Straw Hats time to interject and foil their plans. Shamrock smirks as he says he wants to make a game out of this given their combined powers. This is eerily similar to the game that transpired in God Valley 38 years ago, where the natives of the island were slaughtered in a cruel game of manhunt, in which Shamrock's father Garlang was the champion and attained the most points. Now we will see how this game unfolds, just what exactly the new God Knight's powers are, and whether or not Scopper comes back to fight for his family. Overall, I really enjoyed this chapter, and I think this is where things start going crazy with the invasion and Luffy freeing Loki coming up next essentially. We have very exciting things to look forward to in One Piece. My guys, how did you feel about this chapter? How did you feel about Scopper's action and the introduction of the new God Knights? And what are your ideas on what we will see with Shamrock's competition? Please let me know in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.